we were at church, and we had some new members at church, and they had these two adorable little boys. And one day I was talking to him, and they said, oh, well, they're foster children. And we had no idea what foster children was all about. And so we just got to visiting with them, and they told us that it was through the Department of Human Services, and that you just take kids in and love them like you do your own. And I thought, we can do that. And so we had we called them family powwows, and got, all of our kids together, and the youngest was, she was 5, and asked what they thought about being, foster brother and sisters. And so, of course, they wanted to know what that meant. And we said, well, it's you share your mom and dad, you share your love, you share your grandma and grandpa. I don't want to cry. You share everything. So we prayed about it and decided that we'd be foster parents. So we filled out all the applications, and to be totally sure, we put it in a drawer, and for that year we discussed being foster parents. So for a whole year the application sat in the drawer, and then we decided we were ready, and we sent the application in, and DHS called us and they said, your application's a year old. I said, well, I know, but we wanted to be ready. And so they came out, they did all the interviews and the background checks and financial statements. It was kind of nice when after 6 months, they came and got them.
There's some that can really try your patience.
Yeah.
And you got to think, though, they've been through a lot.
Yeah.
So it's no wonder that they're messed up, a lot of them. But they're all the kids are just eager for love and affection. And even though some had been severely abused, they still wanted to be with their mother and father.
They were still loyal to...
And I've always thought that, I would have thought they would have not wanted to go home, but they all wanted to go home and be with their mom and dad.
Yeah. There was a few that didn't, but... And there was a few that couldn't, due to circumstances. Yeah. But
there was several that we thought about adopting, and would get ready to do the paperwork on one, and then somebody would say, well, there's somebody else that's trying to adopt too, and they don't have any kids. And we think, well, we've got our 4 kids.
Yeah, okay. So we let some precious kids go by, but
kids.
We probably blessed some family that didn't have kids.
Michael, who we were in the process of getting the papers and everything, was kidnapped.
Yeah, and he was murdered. He was kidnapped from school and murdered.
And
that was in '94.
And after that, we said no more foster kids.
Yeah.
But then,
they
had this thing. They knew if they could get Merle to look at the child, she would take the child. And then she saw another child.
Oh no, our caseworker called us and she said, we have this little baby girl that is in ICU. She was in neonate unit at Children's, and she'd been there 3 months, and they needed a foster family. And so I said, man, Michael's just been, kidnapped, and I'm just not ready. And she said, why don't you just go to the hospital and, just get a look at her and see what you think. And so I took Rachel with me.
That's our youngest.
She was, I think she was 13 or 14. And so we go into neonate ICU, and here's this little bitty, she doesn't weigh more than 9 pounds. She's 3 months old. And she was special needs infant and had a lot, there was a lot of care involved. And so we get home, and I call the worker, and I said, yeah, we'll take her. And so we took her, and we had her for 7 years before she passed away, and she was such a blessing.
Oh.
I mean,
little Cabrina.
Yes, everybody loved her, and she was so photogenic, and every time there was something going on at school and they needed somebody in a picture, it was always, because she always smiled. She didn't walk, she was in a wheelchair, and she was such a blessing. She was a doll.
We
Yes.
we had her, what, 4 years, and then we
We had her
adopted her?
7.
7
Yeah, we
years?
had her 4
4
years.
years, and then we adopted her.
And I asked DHS, she wasn't going home, and she'd never seen her parents again. And I said, they got to talking about adoption, and I said, well, what happens if we don't adopt her? And they said, well, we'll just put her in a institution. And I was like, oh, no. Because the doctors told me she's never going to walk, she's never going to talk. You know, she's just going to be a vegetable.
Now, that's when we first got
That's
her.
when we first got her. And she surprised everybody. She didn't walk. She could talk some. She could
rolled
do
everywhere.
sign language. She rolled.
She wouldn't go, she'd roll.
She'd
And when she's just mischievous. Whenever you'd go to pick her up or something, she'd start rolling away and just giggling. And she'd do something she shouldn't. She'd roll away. And
Yeah.
she couldn't sit up by herself. Once you set her up later on in life, she
Yeah.
could sit up, but she couldn't get up on her own. She had rickets and just all sorts of stuff.
But she
And
was
when we were
beautiful
talking
little
about
girl.
adopting her, we knew what kind of condition she was in. And I said, honey, we could be setting ourselves in for a big heartache because nobody believed she would live nobody believed she'd live 7 years. But she finally got to the point where there's no more access for kidney dialysis. And so at that point we was told, and she was in the hospital at that time, and we was told that she, you know, either she stays in the hospital and dies or you take her home and live her and make her comfortable at home. And that's what we did.
So we
and so
took
we
her
took her
home.
home, and she lasted longer than what they thought even at home.
Yeah, she lasted 13 days after we got her home.
Yeah.
So
But the night she died, we could tell it was getting close. And so we took her in the living room. We had her bed right there by ours. Took her in the living room, and Merle was holding her, rocking her, and she breathed her last.
and when she breathed, we both knew that when she took her last breath in my arms, she took next breath in the arms of Jesus. And so that gave us hope.